What's the best possible outcome for me? That's also a win-win for whomever I'm making a deal with. And so that's just something I want to make sure that we bring into this. If it's a me versus you sort of thing, always, there might be some situations where that plays to your favor, but the reality is, like let's say an employee's, negotiating a salary or a compensation package with you. If you pay them less in the short term, that might actually look like a win for you. But then if they do crappy work, then they want to quit, 3 months later, 6 months later, they're spreading bad, juju around the office. Then all of a sudden your win in the negotiation wasn't a win at all because you didn't get their best work.
Welcome to the Better Than Rich Show with your hosts, Andrew Biggs and Mike Abramowitz. The Better Than Rich Show helps ambitious leaders who are on a mission to leave the world better than they found it, change their perspective on what's important, increase their income and impact, and systemize their life and business. If you've ever struggled with finding your purpose, have felt disconnected or distracted, or found yourself going through the motions, this show will remind you that what you do matters and will re-inspire you to chase your highest dreams. It's time for you to become better than rich.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Better Than Rich Show. What's going on, Mike? How are you today?
I'm doing good. Started the day early. Anytime you can start before the sun comes up is a good day, right?
That's right. Awesome, man. What'd you do this morning?
So I'm getting a little bit more acclimated to my morning rituals. So I have it written down. So I woke up, made my bed, peed, drank water, wrote my gratitude, wrote my goals. And then I wrote my evening ritual, which I did last night, and then wrote my morning ritual, which I was actually doing in the moment. Went for a walk, did my breath, went to the gym, did some learning, went to the sauna, listened to meditation music, and then I did my staff huddle at 8 a.m. So got all that stuff done between 5:45 and 8, and it's been nice just kind of getting into a rhythm of what is going to serve me and serve the people around me. So it's
nice, man.
Good.
Nice. I love that peed made the list. That's good. If you need a morning ritual, you can just copy what Mike just said right there, right? So if you need a morning ritual, just copy that. A little bit of housekeeping before we dive into today's topic. We do want to announce the winner of our Better Than Rich water bottle contest. That is going to be Cami Bahama. We were able to track her down. So Cami Bahama, I know that's your screen name, not exactly your real name, but you are going to get the Better Than Rich water bottle. So be on the lookout for that in your inbox, actually your mailbox, that's your inbox. And then, a couple other things. We are going to do a really cool webinar coming up. The link will be in the show notes. You can also find it on our Facebook page. It's going to be all about how to actually find fulfillment. We're calling it 360-degree fulfillment. So fulfillment in all areas of your life. And so we would love to have you there. It's going to be on June 1st at 8 o'clock Eastern in the evening. So, Mike, is there anything you want to say about that webinar? Why should someone make sure that they make this a priority?
Yeah, I just think a lot of people right now, especially as we are in Q2 and in the heat of summer, planning and prep and whatnot. I just think getting clear of your business and your purpose and seeing how those two things align with each other. That it's some people use the analogy of a roller coaster. It's like, oh, there's ups and downs and all these twists and turns, but realistically, everything's pretty much even keel, where it's just you're bouncing between the two. You're bouncing between your personal and you're bouncing between your professional, and there's relationships in between, and it's like they're both happening simultaneously. It's just a matter of what's getting your attention and how to show up the most present way possible. So just taking an approach of a 360-degree approach of your personal, your professional, your health, your relationships, your purpose, your passion, your business, your systems. I mean, I'm really excited to just dig in and have this conversation, a little bit longer form conversation with you. I think we have slotted 60 to 90 minutes for that conversation.
Right.
And, it's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an opportunity for you to engage with us, interact with us. But we would love to see you there. So make sure that you find the link. If you need it, you can also slide into our DMs and we'll shoot it over to you. And then, big update from the last episode. If you haven't had a chance to listen to our virtual assistant episode, I would recommend going back and listening to that. People really loved it. We got a great response from it. And we have over 10 clients who signed up now for our VA services. So the next 10, we are going to be slashing the onboarding fee in half. So if you are interested in being a part of that next batch, we will still honor that. You can check that out at www.betterthanrich.com/VA. Awesome, man. Well, hey, today's topic is all about the art and science of negotiation. And, it's one of those foundational skills, right? We have to know how to negotiate at least a little bit, or we're constantly going to be getting the short of the stick. We're not going to be getting our needs met. And we're going to end up being resentful simply because we didn't know how to advocate for ourselves. We didn't know how to put our interests forward. That can be taken too far, certainly, but some people have no idea how to advance their own interests and therefore wonder when they wake up, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, where they went wrong, right? And why they aren't where they want to be. So, Mike, when you think about the art and science of negotiation, I've given a little bit of a preface here, but what's one or two things that comes up to get the conversation going?
Well, I want to kick it to you actually first, because you taught me something back when we started coaching together about the levels of influence. And I'd love for you to jam on that for just a moment of there's really 3 levels of influence. And if you want to revisit that, I think that would be a great framework for the conversation of arts and science of negotiation.
Yeah, and I think that the way we want to look at this is almost like positioning, in a conversation. How are you positioning yourself? Because ultimately, when we think about negotiation, he who has the most leverage is he who's willing to walk away from the deal, right? He who needs it less is the one who has the negotiating leverage and power. So when we think about, there's 3 different positions to sell from and influence from. The first one is the demonstrator, right? And this is somebody who we're placing the client's money ahead of our value or service, right? Our product or service. And so basically the only way to do that is to talk about how great we are, right? To try to demonstrate that. But they're actually in the negotiating, captain's seat, because we're placing the money that they have ahead of what we bring to the table. The second one is a little bit more even, right? And below, if you're watching online, you can see my kind of hands moving. Before you were below, now you're moving to even. This is called the connector. And the connector is somebody who kind of sees it as even, right? Like, hey, you have something I want, I have something you want, let's make a deal, right? I think we could be mutually beneficial to each other. And so there's like a connection that you're trying to build because you're seeing each other as peers, but you really don't necessarily want to try to influence somebody from a peer perspective. If you ever tried to give your friend, who you grew up with and your childhood friends advice, they really aren't interested in your expertise because, they just see you as a peer. They see you as a friend. So why would they? So that's called being a connector. Now, where you want to position yourself is as an expert, right? As somebody who actually needs the money less than they need your product or service. And so when you are the person who is more needed, right, and you don't need their money, but they need what you have to offer, then obviously you're putting yourself in the captain's chair in terms of actually navigating the negotiation. You have the leverage. So if they do try to push back on any number of terms, whether it's price or service levels or whatever the agreement is, you can say, hey, look, I don't need this deal, right? And if you don't like the terms, then I'm sure you can find someone else to meet your terms, but that's not really something I'm interested in doing. So those are the 3 different positions you can kind of influence from, and I think it really does translate well to negotiation. Mike, what are your thoughts?
It translates perfectly to negotiation because ultimately I think there's a lot of people that are in that demonstrator phase of selling. Hey, this is what I have. You make the decision. The connector is good. I think there's some people in that connector, but we really want to train these experts. We want to help experts be the person of influence. And I know we've jammed on that in a couple previous episodes, but there's, the idea of mastering influence through rapport building and through question asking, through state management, through personal congruency that your product or service is in their best interest. And there are certain things that you need to embody in order to be the expert in at the negotiation table. So I'm excited to explore some of those arts and sciences with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about, bare bones, again, high level, it's like he who is needed less, right, has the leverage. And also understand that we have to understand the goal of negotiation too. I know you're going to walk through some of these specific steps, right, that you want to cover. That I think everyone needs to get their notes out because some really good stuff that's coming up. But just high level, conceptually, what we want to be thinking is, well, what I want to do here is I want to be needed less, and then I want to create a win-win, right? So if the object of the negotiation, and this is where like nice people get caught up about negotiation, Mike, right? At least this is my thoughts, is they actually feel bad, right, about negotiating. And they think, oh, well, if I'm trying to take more, then obviously I'm trying to take more for myself and give less to whomever I'm making a deal with. And, that's not a bad impulse, right? Basically, you're saying, well, hey, I want to make sure that this is fair so that we're creating a win-win for the future. And I think that's really smart. But you also need to make sure that it's a win for you. And so it's like the way you probably want to look at negotiation is, what's the best possible outcome that's also a win-win, right? What's the best possible outcome for me that's also a win-win for whomever I'm making a deal with? And so that's just something I want to make sure that we bring into this. If it's a me versus you sort of thing always, there might be some situations where that plays to your favor, but the reality is, like let's say an employee's, negotiating a salary or a compensation package with you. If you pay them less in the short term, that might actually look like a win for you. But then if they do crappy work, then they want to quit, 3 months later, 6 months later, they're spreading bad, juju around the office. Then all of a sudden your win in the negotiation wasn't a win at all because you didn't get their best work. So Mike, what's coming up for you?
I'm ready to dig in some of these sciences. I think we'll start with the science and then go to the art.
Probably. Yeah, that sounds good. What comes up for you on the science?
Well, being in sales for 18 years with selling Cutco, and then recruiting over 10,000, about 5,000. I trained, recruited, and interviewed well over 10 to 15,000 people. Selling books and selling speaking packages, selling coaching clients. I mean, there's been so many opportunities to learn and get better. Plus, going through Mastering Influence with Tony Robbins, there's been a lot of science that I've learned. So as much as I would love to go through every single piece of that content with you today, I won't be able to go through it all, but I do want to go through a couple of fundamental basics that have shown up for me that will be helpful. The first one is the 7 steps to a sale. This is like the base level of selling. So the 7 steps to a sale include, number 1 is building rapport. So connecting. Number 2, establish credibility. Step 3 is to create a problem. Step 4, offer a solution for that problem. Step 5 is create a specific need. Step 6 is do a price comparison. And then step 7 is where you negotiate. So if you do the first 6 steps well, the negotiation becomes easy, because during the first 6 steps, you establish yourself as the expert, you establish a need and a problem, you offered a solution for the problem. The specific need is almost like if you're if you ever hear the example I teach is laser hair removal. You may have heard one of these commercials on an infomercial, something like it's like laser hair removal. We've been around for this long, established credibility. Then have you ever had unwanted hair? Problem. Solution. Imagine never having to worry about shaving again. That's the solution. The specific use is the upper lip, the back, the lower back, behind the neck, the eyebrows, right? Those are the specific areas. Price comparison. No other laser hair removal companies cost this, or buying and rebuying razors over and over again might cost this. So it's a price comparison. And now it's positioned you to have negotiation power as an expert. So following the 7 steps to a sale is a great way to position negotiation. So I could keep riffing. I got more, but
yeah, no, it's good.
So should I keep
keep going. Keep going. Yeah.
Okay. So as far as getting into the negotiation, the first thing is asking with confidence. So whenever you're going to ask for the sale, you want to ask with confidence. So there's different ways to do it. There's a yes or yes question that you could use, such as, did you want to pay it in full, or would you rather do a monthly installment plan? So it's like a yes or yes. Did you want to put it on your debit card, or most people put it on their credit card so they get points? Which one works better for you? So that's an idea of a yes or yes. There's also the never get a no. Never get a no. So that's a yes or yes question in a different way, which would be, does that option work for you, or would you like me to show you another option? So they're either saying, yes, that option works, or yes, show me another option. So that way you don't get the consumer or the potential client to say the word no, because no is a trigger word that can potentially create a downward sequence. So yes or yes questions, asking with confidence. How does that sound? Does that work for you? Did you want to move forward with that? The whole idea of smiling and nodding, asking questions that are easy for them to say yes. So those are good ways of doing that. Presenting a price. Anytime you present a price, it's good to present it in a visual way. So if you're using Zoom, I would pull up the whiteboard and draw it on the whiteboard so there's a visual, or have a keynote slide where you could share screen so there's some sort of visual. Maybe even draw it out, have the client take out a pen and they draw it out and they write down the price. So that way they could see the visual. And if you ever watch an infomercial, they always have the big number and then they have the smaller monthly amount written in a bigger bigger font. So it'd be like, say it's $10,000. They'll have $10,000 written and they'll circle it and then they'll draw like a line. And then it's let's say it's $1,000 a month for 10 months. They would put $1,000 bigger than the $10,000. So that way they're seeing the $10,000 a month. And obviously on an infomercial, it's more like $19.99 is the big number versus the $100 is the smaller one, right? So the price positioning. I got two more for you. Transitioning from the no is very important. This is you may have heard the concept of objection cycle. So the transition into the objection cycle is really critical, because what happens is you don't want to create the me versus you feel. So you want to align with them. So as soon as they say no, or they're unsure, or they're considering, or they give you an objection or concern. So number one is just pause. So just a pause with a smile and nod. Don't say anything. Why? Because they might not be done talking. You want to let them just get all of the words out, just hold space for them to talk, and just smile and nod, and just, as they're talking, just nod your head. Cool. Then as long as there's maybe a 3 to 5 second pause, that's your cue. 3 to 5 seconds is the cue. It's a little awkward, uncomfortable, but 3 or 5 nods. And then it's like, no problem. Hey, no problem. No problem means no pressure. So no problem, no sweat. I completely understand how you feel. I love that. Feel, felt, found. Feel, felt, found is another tool. I completely understand how you feel. In fact, my sister, she felt the exact same way. I had a client last week who felt the exact same way. What they have found is, by going through this product or service, or this, you fill in the blank, benefit, 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 then you could go into the next part, which is this objection cycle of, once you're answering their concern, then you ask again with confidence. So the objection cycle is, this idea of, I completely understand how you feel. Transition, use some sort of logic or information to rebuild value to offset their concern, and then ask again with confidence. So to demonstrate that real quick, and I'll toss it to you, Andrew. Completely understand how you feel. In fact, I have a lot of clients who felt that exact same way. What they found: value, 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 offer solution, use logic, use reasoning. So with that being said, what do you think? Would you like to give it a try and see if that works a little bit better for you? Or would you like me to show you another option?
I'd like you to show me another option. No, that's great. That's sweet, man. Dude, that's an epic rant. If you didn't, capture all that in your notes, go back and listen to that. I mean, maybe we'll even clip that out and send it out to y'all as a one-off clip on YouTube or something. But I mean, yeah, this is just such good stuff, such good basics of consumer psychology to understand what's going on inside your prospect's mind, how to work with them, how to actually, position yourself and then position your product or service properly. And when it comes to, the objection cycle, basically the concept you want to be thinking about is, people don't really change their mind. They make new decisions based off of new information, right? No one's just randomly, based on no new information, going to change how they feel about something, right? If I like you or I don't like you, if I get no new information, that's not changing, right? It's if I get new information that I might actually change my mind. Oh, I didn't know that about him. Actually, maybe I do like him, or whatever. So when we offer new information, what we're doing is we're giving the customer, the prospect, the opportunity to reconsider their position on things. Namely, is this a good value? Is this a good fit? So that objection cycle is something every single person needs to understand when it comes to negotiation, because objections are going to arise. We need to appreciate that concern and then offer them some new information that ultimately we can ask again. And by the way, you do kind of have to, if you haven't yet created the nerves of steel, and like Mike, maybe you can share some tips that you have for just like creating the nerves of steel to be able to ask any question. But you do need to be able to like fire multiple rounds of questions to say, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Now, you're not the pushy car salesman or anything like that. What you're doing is you're only asking once you've given new information, and therefore it only is logical for you to ask again because you've offered new information that they can then consider. Does that change your mind? Hey, how do you feel about that now? Now that you see the whole picture, what do you think? Do you think it's a good fit? And you can continue to ask. So if you don't have those nerves of steel, find a way to get those nerves of steel. Maybe it's just repetition and getting yourself out there and asking, 100 people if they want to buy something 7 times each. And I bet you that you're going to get pretty good at it, right? So, Mike, what are some tips that you have for developing that?
Well, the first thing is no does not mean a rejection. It's important. So the reason why I could have nerves of steel is because I'm not emotionally attached to no. They're not rejecting me. They're rejecting my proposal. So it's like the example that one of my mentors used to teach me. It's like if you go to McDonald's and they say, we have a special today for 2 apple pies for $1. Would you like them? And I say no. And I drive around to the window and the person at the register is crying or frustrated, or they just throw the bag. It's like, I can't believe you rejected me. It's such a good deal. 2 apple pies for $1. Why'd you say no? Why'd you reject me? And I remember him teaching this to me in my early days of selling Cutco. And it's like, it's such a funny way of remembering. It's like, well, I didn't reject you. I rejected the apple pies. So it's just a reminder that no is not a rejection. No, to me, is a quest for more knowledge. It's a quest for more value. So no means I'm not comfortable saying yes yet. That's all it means. I need more value. Now, sometimes people think more value means I need to lower the price, potentially, because if price and value is all no or I'm unsure means is the price is still higher than the value. So you have 2 choices: lower the price or raise the value. So most of the time people will say, I'm just going to lower the price, which is okay. But that might compromise that win-win that Andrew, you mentioned earlier, because now it's like, I'm just going to take away some of my commission or lower the price for you, which maybe that's a good strategy. A better strategy, the expert strategy is, that's great. This is the price. I totally understand. Like, you don't have to spend that money with me. I just want to let you know this is why that price is this way. Let me give you some new information, or let me reiterate some of the information that we said. Let me remind you of a couple things and paint that picture for them even more, giving them even more logic, offsetting some of those concerns, making it easy for them to say yes. Maybe offer a money back guarantee type of thing, something that can help them feel comfortable with making a decision today. That's what negotiating is. How can I help them make a comfortable yes decision today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this idea of rejection versus objection, it's so important. And there's even some really cool videos online you can check out where people are doing rejection challenges, where it's like basically every day they try to get rejected. And it's like rewiring our minds and our brains to be comfortable with rejection. And it's like, how often is the fear of rejection stopping us from doing any number of things, right? Whether it's starting a business or starting a podcast or asking for the order or asking that girl on a date, whatever it is, the fear of rejection is pretty powerful, but ultimately it's, it doesn't hurt that bad and you get over it quickly if you are properly managing it. So this is really good.
I'll say one thing to that. I actually wrote a chapter in one of my books around this. I think I call it the lunchroom breakthrough or something like that. I remember asking, I didn't want to ask the girl out on a date. I was nervous. And what I say in the story, like her name was Rachel. And I tell the story of, I had a crush on her, but no one knew about the crush. So I kept it a secret. And I remember I watched Joe Nagy ask her out on a date, and she said yes. And I was so pissed at Joe and Rachel. I was like, how dare them? They betrayed me, my friend and the girl I wanted. And the idea is that if I didn't, by me not asking her, I still didn't have a date. If I just went up to her and I said, hey, do you want to go have dinner on Friday night? If she said no, I'm still eating dinner Friday night by myself. If she said yes, I had a date. If she said no, life didn't get worse, it stayed the same. So the concept of rejection is not real. It's I either get closer or I get what I want, or I just stay exactly where I was before I asked. So the reason why people fear rejection is because they think they're regressing. They think they're getting worse by getting told no. But the reframe is I only get better when they say yes. And I'm okay with where I'm at right now because I'm unattached and I'm not needy. I just want this. And that's why I'm asking for it. But if I get no, I'm just comfortable with where I'm at.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's such a good concept. I mean, you're not going backwards when you're rejected, so make sure that you are taking that to heart. A couple of things that I wanted to share in terms of like more of the art side, and I'm obviously curious to hear your thoughts as well, Mike. But one of the biggest things you can do in a negotiation is just practice active listening. And are you really being present to hear what's going on? To hear what your prospect or the person you're negotiating with actually is saying, but then additionally, what are they saying without it being said, right? How can you pick up on their body language, how their tone of voice, what they emphasize in the conversation versus what they de-emphasize? And what we're doing is we're looking for where are their pain points, where are the biggest areas that really matter to them. So active listening is such an important thing. Another thing is to mirror back, and to summarize back what you've heard. Okay. And, oftentimes you could even say the exact phrase, right? Whatever they end on, you can kind of repeat back to them. So it's like, hey, I'm just saying that this is really important to me. Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is that this is really important to you. And what that does is it signals, right? Quite directly that you are listening. You're showing them that you're listening and that you care. And nobody's interested in negotiating with somebody that can't at least summarize back or repeat back what's important. Again, on the summary side, it would be kind of taking what they said in like a little brain dump or like this rant, and then packaging it in a way that is concise and synthesizes their main points. And if you're able to do that, basically a lot of times when I do that, people go, wow, you just said it better than I said it myself. Like you told me more about myself that I didn't even realize I knew, and you said it exactly right, in 2 sentences that took me 15 minutes to divulge to you. So if we're listening, I think that's a really, really important thing. And then how are we signaling that we're listening is another important thing. So any other things that come up for you on the art side of negotiation?
So art, I have a couple of the things that I've written down. The first art is the levels of you said underneath the levels of influence, there is something I learned of the tools of influence and mastering influence. So the art of rapport, the art of state management, the art of question asking, and the art of personal congruency. And, without going full deep into all of those, because we could have an entire episode on each one, but the idea of rapport is deep connection, because if they like me, they're going to trust me. So it's not like, how is the weather? That's like that surface level rapport. So it's more of like getting into the rapport by sharing a personal story or relating where they're like, wow, he's just like me. Like I just had a prospect call with someone, never met him before, just a cold Facebook message. We hopped on a call. We caught up within 20 minutes. I know so much about this guy's life story because I was able to set the stage and open up by being a little vulnerable, creating space where he felt comfortable to be vulnerable. And then boom, the floodgates started opening up. So deep rapport, deep connection is a really important art to learn when it comes to negotiation in the step 1 phase. As far as personal congruency, that means the product, you believe that your product or service is in their better interest than yours, meaning they get a better end of the stick than me, because the money I spend, the money I make on the deal is going to get spent somewhere, but you're going to have the product or service that's going to help you do blank, blank, and blank, which is way better than what I get. I'm winning, but you're winning more. And that's that personal congruency that allows you to ask for the sale 7, 8, 9 times, because it's like, listen, I think it's in your best interest. So the art of personal congruency means you need to really methodically understand and convince yourself of why your product or service is best interest. The art of question asking. This is something that Andrew is one of the masters of. Someone that is just unbelievable at coming up with the right question at the right time and being able to know from deep curiosity. I think we've talked about that in a previous episode. I would go back and check out. I think it was in the 12 tools of coaching episode. But the idea of question asking, and the last one is state management, and your state is your energy. No one wants to negotiate or work with someone who has low energy. So it's like, where's your focus going? Where is your physiology at? What are the words that you're speaking? So the understanding like your physical energy and your mental energy during the sale, I think is really important. So that's one thing that comes up under the levels of influence. I have a couple
Yeah.
other things on the art, but let me kick it back to you.
Yeah, and for those of you who are wondering, like, how do you know the right questions to ask? And basically, this is where, like, when you're really present and you're in deep rapport, you're active listening, and you really are paying attention to what they're saying. What I'm really trying to do is be as present as possible and not try to be thinking about like my next lines or whatever. I'm actually present and I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say in response. And so when we do that, we can trust that the right answers will basically emerge. And it's it's kind of interesting way of operating. And some of you it might sound strange, right? Because you like to have everything buttoned up, and it's like, I need a script and I need to know exactly what I'm going to say and when I'm going to ask this. And there's certainly kind of benchmarks that you have in a negotiation, in a sales call, or whatever, where you are wanting to hit specific lines, or you're wanting to hit specific, at the very least, kind of like these benchmarks for success, where okay, I'm done with this section, I'm moving on. But it's even better if we can just be present and listen and then actually respond to what's happening, right? And be able to, within that skeleton, move around. And this was also kind of covered really well in the Transformative Conversations episode. But when it comes to asking questions, what I'm doing is I'm like basically connecting with this higher part of myself, and then I'm letting that higher part ask the questions. And then it's like, well, what questions arise? And if the question pops in my head, I'm going to ask it, right? A lot of times I'll even just say, hey, this might sound like a strange question, but it just popped in my head. I thought I'd ask it, And what was your relationship like with your dad? And it's like, they're like, oh my gosh, like you have no idea. Like, let me tell you this crazy story. And 9 times out of 10, it's like the right question, maybe even 99 times out of 100, because I'm just trusting that my inspiration is coming through. I think it was Carl Jung who said, people stumble upon their thoughts, create their thoughts the way they stumble upon a table, when they walk into a room. Our thoughts really aren't ours. Like, where do they come from? They just pop into your head, right? We really don't know the substrate from where our thoughts arise from. And so what if you just trusted that if a thought's coming up, maybe I should ask this question, even if it sounds a little weird. So anyways.
And that's why I've worked so well with you, because you helped me tap into that. I mean, that's a feminine energy quality that you're bringing into a negotiation, which is more of a masculine type of conversation, because you want you're outcome driven. So it's like being able to bring and merge and converge those two. That's really what we're talking about here, is the art of being able to call out the feminine in the middle of a masculine transaction, right? And that's methodical. It takes practice. It takes coaching. It takes intentionality, and that's why I really love this topic. I also think about the concept of matching and mirroring. That as you're listening, you also want to match, like, are they talking loud? Are they talking soft? Are they, what part of their body are they speaking with, right? Like, so if you have someone that's telling you a deep, dark secret of like, and they're just like, yeah, and like, that's how they're talking, you want to come in and do the exact same thing of, yeah, I fully relate and I appreciate you for sharing that. Because if you come in and be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I totally relate. I experienced that too. It's a disconnect during the negotiation process.
For sure.
This art of matching and mirroring and listening with your full body and meeting them where they're at, and the deeper breaths versus the shallow breaths. And if they're really excited, then it's also pacing and leading. This is another art where it's like they're really fired up and they're all excited, but you need to kind of calm them down a little bit. It's like meeting them where they're at, and then it's also pacing and leading them. It's like, I'm with you, man. I'm totally with you. And let me ask you this, like, what happened when you were right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could bring it down and pay and ideally lead them to the energetic that you want them at in order for them to say the yes during the negotiations.
Right.
So these are a couple of the arts that show for me.
Absolutely. I mean, what you're doing there is you're remaining in rapport. Like, you're gaining that deep rapport, and then we're maintaining it throughout. And there really should be very, very, few times where we ever break rapport, right? And it's like, by the way, the rule whenever you lose rapport is to get in rapport. Like, so your outcome basically immediately pivots from like whatever your outcome was when you started to how do I get back in rapport, right? It's like, hey, maybe I misspoke there, by the way. Sorry if I, it sounded a little harsh there, but what I was trying to get at was this. Okay, so now we're just repairing that rapport so that we can move forward and actually work together. The last thing that I had here on my notes, is to know what a win-win looks like, or at least a win looks like for you, right? And to know what are your stop points, what are you willing to give up in this negotiation, and what are you not? What are your non-negotiables? And so if you haven't done enough thinking about what constitutes a win for you coming out of this negotiation, and you haven't done enough thinking about what you'd be willing to concede, what's kind of in the nice to have column and what's in the must have column, then when they present their version of that to you, you're more likely to just accept it because you haven't really thought through it long enough and hard enough to actually know whether or not it's a win for you. And so often what happens in a negotiation is the person who's thought it through more, right, is the one who wins the negotiation. The person who hasn't thought it through ends up accepting terms that are less than optimal and then regrets it later and says, oh, why did I agree to that, right? That was a bad deal. I shouldn't have done that. Or, I could have gotten a better deal elsewhere. Or, now all of a sudden I've overcommitted myself and I'm not really getting compensated the way I should be getting compensated for it. So knowing your stop points, knowing what you're willing to concede, what are your non-negotiables as you head into a negotiation, and what are your nice to haves?
Yeah, I love that. I think about a target. It's like a 3-ring target. You have the outside ring are your absolute non-negotiables. Like, this is an absolute must. And then there's a second level interior where it's like, these are the nice haves. Like, I'd really like to have these. And then there's the bullseye where it's like, these are my main key. Like, I really want this. Mm-hmm. And so as you're dropping down or negotiating, you're starting with the bullseye, but then you're going to the second out layer of the ring. It's like, all right, it'd be nice to have this. But these outside ring, you got to know, especially if you're in a recruiting business or in a sales business, like if you're doing especially negotiating, bringing on a staff, like negotiating salaries and terms, like any of that stuff, you got to know what that outside ring is that you're not going to, it's like anything outside of that is a no deal.
Absolutely.
So I love that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Cool, man. Well, hey, I'm feeling pretty complete. I'm excited about this episode, and I'm excited for you, the listener, to get a lot of value from this. This is definitely one of those to go back and listen and make sure you get all the little nuggets and take some notes and listen again to. But Mike, any closing thoughts before we call it a day?
Go get rejected. Go have fun. Don't be scared of no. No is where the game begins. So think of it like a game. No is when the game begins, and that's when you can use all your gifts and all the things that you just learned. So go have fun with that.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great day ahead, great week ahead, and until next time, remember to leave today better than you found it. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at betterthan_rich and join our Facebook group at the Better Than Rich Show. Thanks again for listening. We look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, leave today better than you found it.